The cranberry sauce was still simmering when my mother-in-law walked into my kitchen and said, without looking at me, "You really should have used fresh cranberries. Canned ones are so pedestrian." I didn't answer. I just turned down the heat, wiped my hands on the dish towel hanging from the oven handle, and reminded myself that I had been doing this for 4 years. 4 Christmases, 4 Thanksgivings, 4 New Year's Eve dinners where I spent more time in the kitchen than at the table, and where nobody once said thank you. Not really. Not in a way that meant anything. This year was Christmas, 12 people. My husband Lorne had actually promised, with words and eye contact, that his family would help this time. "We'll make it a team effort," he said. "My mom wants to bring her green bean casserole." His mother brought herself and an opinion about everything I touched. His sister brought a bottle of wine she opened before she even took off her coat. His brother brought his girlfriend, who I'd never met, who spent the first hour of the evening sitting on my couch, showing Lorne something on her phone and laughing at a volume that carried all the way to the kitchen. I was making herb-roasted prime rib for 12. Twice-baked potatoes. Homemade dinner rolls I'd started the night before. A maple-glazed carrot dish that Lorne's father specifically requested. And the cranberry sauce that, according to my mother-in-law, was pedestrian. I had taken 3 days off work for this. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist. My schedule is not easy to clear, but I had cleared it. Because Lorne said the holidays mattered to him, and what mattered to him was supposed to matter to me. That was marriage, right? That's what I believed. By 2 in the afternoon, the prime rib was in the oven, and I was starting on the potatoes. My mother-in-law appeared in the kitchen doorway again, glass of something red in her hand. "Do you need help, sweetheart?" It was the way she said it. Like she already knew the answer was no, and was just waiting to be released back to the living room. "I'm fine," I said. "You sure? You look a little flushed. Ovens do that." She made a sound, half laugh, half something else, and drifted back toward the sound of the football game. Lorne came in 20 minutes later. I thought maybe he was coming to help. He opened the refrigerator, stood in front of it for a full 30 seconds, then took out a beer and left. I stood at the counter holding a potato I was about to halve, and I thought, is this it? Is this what the next 30 years look like? I scooped out the potato and kept going. Dinner was at 6. By 5:30, everything was done. I had timed it almost perfectly, which took more mental energy than most people will ever understand. The rolls were warm. The carrots were glazed. The prime rib had rested and was ready to slice. I changed out of my kitchen clothes, put on the burgundy dress I'd bought specifically for this dinner, and came back downstairs to find that nobody had set the table. Not one person. 12 adults in that house. My husband, his parents, his brother, his sister, her husband, the new girlfriend, 3 cousins, and 1 cousin's kid. And the dining table was still bare. I set it myself. I didn't say anything. I lit the candles, arranged the serving dishes, and called everyone to dinner. We sat down. Lorne's father said a short grace. The food was passed around. His mother tried the cranberry sauce and said nothing, which I had learned to read as reluctant approval. His brother's girlfriend said she didn't eat red meat, which was the first I was hearing about it, and I quietly excused myself to make her a plate from the sides. For a little while, it was almost fine. There was the particular kind of noise that holidays make. Dishes clinking, several conversations happening at once, someone laughing too loudly. I let myself relax a fraction. I ate a few bites of my own food while it was still warm. Then Lorne set down his fork. He didn't look at me at first. He looked at the table, at some spot between the bread basket and the candle, and his jaw moved like he was organizing something behind his teeth. "I've been thinking," he said, "and I think we should talk about separating." The table didn't go quiet all at once. It happened in waves, conversation dropping off in clusters as people tuned in to what was happening. I watched it spread from face to face. Some people looked confused. Some people, and this is the part I keep coming back to, some people didn't look surprised at all. His mother, his sister, his brother, they weren't surprised. They knew. I put my fork down very carefully. I'm still not entirely sure how I did what I did next, but something in me went very still. The way you go still when you're in the middle of something dangerous and panic will only make it worse. I thought about my patients. Little kids who don't have the words for what they're feeling but need someone calm across from them. I have trained myself to be that person. Maybe that's what saved me in that moment. I folded my napkin and set it beside my plate. I looked at Lorne, not with tears, not with rage, just looked at him. "Okay," I said. He blinked. I don't think okay was what he was expecting. I pushed back my chair, stood up, and looked at his mother at the far end of the table. "The rolls are best warm," I said. "There's more cranberry sauce in the small pot on the stove if you run out." I picked up my water glass. "Enjoy the rest of your dinner." And then I walked upstairs, and I closed the bedroom door, and I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall for probably 4 minutes. Not crying, just processing. Then I got up, pulled my overnight bag from the top shelf of the closet, and started packing. I want to be honest about something, because I think it matters. I was not as blindsided as I might have seemed. Lorne and I had been struggling for almost 2 years, not in the dramatic, explosive way. It's in the slow, grinding way that's almost harder to name. The way where you stop looking forward to coming home. The way where you have the same conversation for the 15th time and realize you're not actually hearing each other anymore. We had tried counseling once. He stopped going after the 4th session, but I had never stopped believing we could fix it. That's the part I have to live with. I kept thinking, next month will be better, next season, after the holidays. He had apparently stopped believing much earlier than I had. What I didn't know until later was that he'd already spoken to an attorney. He'd already started moving money around in our joint account. Not taking it, exactly, just repositioning it in a way that would be harder to trace. He'd apparently been told, or had decided, that announcing this at Christmas dinner in front of his entire family would somehow make it easier. Like witnesses would keep me calm. Or like it would be harder for me to make a scene. He didn't know me as well as he thought. I packed a bag with the things I actually needed. My work badge and ID, my laptop, both my passports. I have dual citizenship. I've learned to keep both accessible. The folder of personal documents I keep in the fireproof box in the back of the closet. Birth certificate, social security card, the deed to my car, which was entirely in my name. I had read enough of those late-night forum threads over the past year, the ones where women described what they wished they'd grabbed on the way out. I had quietly taken notes. I called my sister from the upstairs bathroom, keeping my voice low. "Christmas is canceled," I told her. "Can I stay with you tonight?" She didn't ask any questions. She just said, "I'll leave the light on." I came downstairs with my bag. The dining room had gone quiet in that particular way. That means everyone heard me on the stairs. Lorne was standing at the bottom, like he'd been waiting. "We should talk," he said. "We will," I said. "But not tonight." "Where?" I looked at him. 4 years, 4 Christmases. And he was standing there in the home I had spent 3 days preparing for his family, asking me where I was going. "To spend Christmas somewhere I'm actually wanted," I said. I walked past him. I stopped in the kitchen long enough to turn off the stove. The cranberry sauce pot I'd forgotten was still on low, and then I walked out the front door. The cold hit me immediately. December in the mid-Atlantic is not gentle, but I stood on the porch for a second, breathing it in, feeling something loosen in my chest that I hadn't even realized was clenched. My car was in the driveway. I got in. I backed out. I drove to my sister's house and ate leftover lo mein on her couch while her dog slept on my feet, and it was the best Christmas dinner I had in 4 years. The calls started around 9 that night. Lorne, first. I let it go to voicemails. He called again at 9:40. Voicemail. A text at 10. "We need to talk. Please call me back." I screenshot it and went to sleep. His mother called the next morning. I had not given her the impression that we were close enough for phone calls, so I was genuinely surprised to see her name on my screen. I let it ring. His sister texted. She had never texted me directly. The message said, "I just want you to know I had no idea he was going to do that." I read it twice and put my phone face down on my sister's coffee table. She absolutely knew. I had watched her face. By the afternoon of December 26th, I had 7 missed calls from Lorne, 2 from his mother, 1 from his brother, whom I will remind you I had met exactly 9 times in 4 years, and a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be his cousin, asking if I was doing okay. I was, as a matter of fact, doing okay. I was also on that same afternoon, sitting across from my own attorney in her office, which she had graciously agreed to open on the day after Christmas because I had been her client for 18 months. Not for divorce. For my small private practice I'd been quietly building on the side. I consult for 2 school districts, and the contracts had needed reviewing. But I had mentioned in one of our meetings earlier that fall that my marriage was in uncertain territory, and she had walked me through some basics. Just in case, she pulled up the documents. "He moved some money in November," she said, sliding a printout across the desk. "Not out of the account, but into a sub-account that's less visible on your shared portal. Here's what it looks like, and here's what we can do about it." I had known something felt off in November. I'd checked our account and the number had seemed lower than I expected, but I'd told myself I must have miscalculated. I had not miscalculated. "Okay," I said. "What do we do?" she told me. It took about 45 minutes. By the end of the meeting, I understood exactly where I stood, what was mine, what was jointly held, and what my options were. I had more options than I expected. The house had been purchased with a significant down payment from an inheritance I received from my grandmother before we married. I had kept documentation of that, almost by accident, because my grandmother's estate attorney had sent me a copy, and I'd filed it without thinking much about it. It mattered now. Lauren and I spoke on the phone on December 27th. I had asked my attorney if I should, and she said it was fine as long as I kept it brief and didn't make any agreements. "I didn't mean for it to happen like that," he said. "I know. I didn't know how to start the conversation, so you started it at Christmas dinner in front of your entire family." Silence. "Lauren," I said, "I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to beg. You told me what you wanted. I'm going to hold you to it." More silence. Then, "I don't know if that's actually what I want." I had expected that, not because I thought he'd changed his mind. I think he was genuinely uncertain, but because he hadn't expected me to leave. He had expected tears or a fight, or days of negotiation at the dining table. He had expected to remain in control of the timeline. When I left, I took the timeline with me. "I've started working with an attorney," I said. "I'd suggest you do the same. Not to fight, just so we both have clear information. This doesn't have to be ugly. You already have an attorney?" "I had one for my consulting contracts. She's helped me understand my options." Another silence. He'd had no idea about any of it. The consulting work, the contracts. The fact that I had, over the past year and a half, been quietly building a professional life that was entirely my own. Not because I was planning to leave, but because I had learned, somewhere in year 2, that I needed something that was mine, something that couldn't be repositioned into a sub-account while I wasn't looking. We ended the call politely. There was almost nothing left to say. The legal process took 5 months. I'm not going to make it sound like it was simple, because it wasn't. There were hard days. There were days I sat in my car in the parking lot of my practice and cried for 10 minutes before going in, because I was about to spend the next 6 hours helping other people's children, and I needed to get it out first. But it was not a war. I did not want a war. I wanted it to be fair, and then I wanted it to be done. The house was the main negotiation point. Because of my grandmother's inheritance documentation, my down payment contribution was treated as separate property. That changed the calculation significantly. We agreed on a buyout. He would either refinance and pay me my share, or we would sell. He chose to refinance. It took longer than expected, but it happened. I found an apartment in March. The second floor of a converted Victorian in a neighborhood I'd always liked, but assumed was out of reach. It was not out of reach. I signed the lease on a Thursday afternoon and sat on the empty floor and ate a burrito from the place on the corner and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. It took me a few days to name it. Relief, mostly. But underneath that, something else. Like walking into a room and realizing it's exactly the right temperature, and you hadn't known you were cold until just then. His mother called me in February. I almost didn't pick up, but something made me. Some curiosity about what there was left to say. She was quiet for a moment after I said hello. Then she said, "I want you to know that what he did, the way he did it, that was wrong. I told him that." I didn't say anything. "You were good to this family," she said. "I wasn't always good to you." It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was closer than I expected. "Thank you for saying that," I said, and I meant it. We didn't talk long. There wasn't much road left between us. But I hung up the phone and stood in my still mostly empty apartment, looking out the second-floor window at the street below. And I thought, okay. I've been in this apartment for 8 months now. I painted the kitchen a deep sage green that I chose entirely by myself with zero input from anyone. I have a reading chair by the window that is mine, positioned exactly where I want it, angled toward the light. My work has grown. I brought on a part-time associate in the fall, and we've expanded to a third school district contract. I sleep well. Not always, but mostly. I still think about that Christmas dinner sometimes. About that moment when the table went quiet and I looked at my husband and said, okay. I don't know where it came from. Some deep, tired, finally ready part of me, I think. People ask me if I'm angry. I was for a while. Not at the dinner itself. I was too much in survival mode to feel anger then. But later, in the weeks after, I felt it. The 4 years. The holidays. The cranberry sauce. But anger is expensive, and I have a practice to run and a lease to pay, and a reading chair positioned exactly where I want it. I let the anger go the way I let a lot of things go last year, deliberately, and without looking back. My grandmother used to say that the most important room in any house is the one where you can finally hear yourself think. I didn't understand that when I was younger. I thought she meant a study or a library, a room with books. She meant any room that's truly yours. I found mine. It's sage green, and it's quiet. And every morning I make coffee in it while it's still dark outside. And I look out the window at the street where nobody knows my old last name, and I think, this is the beginning.